This is a joy. Douglas Holtz-Eakin out of the Princeton shop has done serious work on the debt and the deficit. I'm not going to demean him by asking him about Oval Office discussions or that, but I'm going to ask him about where we are. Of course, his work with the Congressional Budget Office and president of American Action Forum. Dr. Holtz-Eakin, I'm going to cut to the chase. You go where the CBO goes, which is to try to estimate our growth rates of revenues, which I think is called taxes, and spending. Where are those glide paths going to be after this debt crisis?
I think it's important to recognize that regardless of what deal is ultimately struck, it will put the tiniest of dents in our fiscal challenge. The fundamental problem is in the large entitlement spending programs. They're off the table. There's a room to raise more revenue. That's off the table. So we're not addressing the real issues that face the federal government and the budget. And honestly, until we get serious about slowing the growth rate of the big entitlement spending programs, the budget will never end up. They simply grow much faster than revenue ever plausibly will.
I mean, I look where we are, and we need a commission. So we need a commission with people with Z in their names. So I can really see Orszag Holtz-Eakin or Holtz-Eakin Orszag is an intelligent commission that Americans would know as intelligent people coming to an intelligent solution. And yet we're not talking about that. Why not?
This is politics. That's all there is to it. The issue is not the debt ceiling. The issue is not default. There's unanimity that we have to raise the debt ceiling. There's unanimity that we should not even come close to defaulting. There's a big disagreement about the future of fiscal policy. I think it's healthy that this has been highlighted to the American people. My concern has been that in the 21st century, we've never seen the debt do anything but go up, even relative to the economy. And there's never been the political wherewithal to stabilize it, which is, I think, the necessary condition for the U.S. And we really haven't talked about it. If you think back to the presidents we've had, I worked for George W. Bush. I admire him greatly, but his budget said, let's win the war on global terror. You look at the 8 years of the Obama administration, the only thing that they said about the federal budget that might be a problem is the rich didn't pay their fair share. The Trump administration said nothing for 4 years on debts and deficits, and the Biden administration came in with really enormous plans to just expand spending. And so the American people can be excused for not understanding we have a big problem, and we do. Well, but it's time they were told that, and that, addressing it is the thing that we have to do next.
And Doug, they've perhaps been told that, but as Leslie Vinjamori said of Chatham House earlier in the show, it doesn't mean that they're going to accept that they get less on any given day, that they're going to get fewer benefits. And there does seem to be a shift on both sides of the aisle to adding, whether it's respect to investing in technology, whether it's with respect to investing in infrastructure, or whether it's just the spending that we already have in place. It doesn't seem likely that we're going to see restraint in the near future, regardless of what comes from this budget. What's your view in terms of what it would take to make people truly care about a debt limit that doesn't really seem to matter if they could just kick it up and they can keep borrowing at relatively low rates?
They shouldn't care about the debt limit. I mean, there's no real economic rationale for having a debt limit. We're the major economy on the globe that has one, and it doesn't make any economic sense. They should care about the fact that the spending exceeds the revenues as far as the eye can see, and that leads to real threats. They should care even more about the fact that because the entitlement spending is claiming all the revenue, there isn't money for real investments. We're squeezing out national security, basic research, infrastructure, education, the things our founders saw as the role of government. And that's a serious problem for having a more prosperous future. And they should care a lot about the fact that those big programs are taking all the money and they're not financially sustainable. Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Someone who is 55 literally can't plan their retirement because they haven't fixed Social Security. That's just unconscionable. That should wake people up.
What's your sense of the tax revenues? We've been talking about how bumpy and lumpy it's been and that it's been underwhelming. How much is this a lack of investment in the IRS and a lack of tax collection?
We've had a longstanding problem with the IRS. It's beyond merely the technology. It's an organization whose culture has been deeply broken, and so it is time to get the IRS back to its job, which is to collect the taxes and do it effectively. We somewhere along the line decided everything should be a refundable tax credit and turn them into a benefits paying organization. They weren't built to do that, and they struggle with it. And so identifying its mission, getting it staffed up, giving it modern technology are all essential.
Great to catch up, Doug. As always on this, Douglas Holtz-Eakin there of the American Action Forum.